The chamber stretched so high that clouds actually formed near its ceiling. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood at its center, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his entire life. Around him rose tier after tier of seats, each one filled with beings that looked nothing like anything from Earth. Some had scales. Some had tentacles. Some glowed with inner light. And every single one of them was staring at him. This was the Hall of 10,000 Voices, the heart of the Galactic Council. For 6 million years, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy had gathered here to decide the fate of worlds. Wars had been stopped in this room. Species had been judged. Entire planets had been sentenced to isolation or welcomed into the great family of stars. And now, for the first time in history, a human stood in the accused circle. Marcus kept his breathing steady. His diplomatic training had prepared him for difficult negotiations. It had not prepared him for this. The council representatives looked down at him like scientists examining an insect. Some whispered to each other in languages his translator could not handle. Others simply watched with expressions he could not read. High Magistrate Kel Voss floated at the highest point of the chamber. Her species had no solid form. She existed as a shifting cloud of silver particles that caught the light in strange ways. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once. The human ambassador will now answer for the actions of his species. Marcus swallowed hard. I am ready to speak, High Magistrate. Then explain, Kel Voss continued, why your people have built military installations in the sanctuary zone. This region has been declared neutral for 400,000 years. No weapons. No soldiers. No exceptions. A massive reptilian figure stepped forward from the military section of the gallery. General Throck of the Venari Empire stood nearly 3 meters tall, his armored hide covered in battle scars from 100 campaigns. His species had conquered 2,000 worlds before joining the council. They were considered the greatest warriors in known space. The humans have violated sacred law, Throck growled. They placed weapons where weapons are forbidden. They brought soldiers where soldiers cannot go. There is only one punishment for this crime. Marcus felt the weight of that statement. He knew what Throck meant. The punishment was extinction. Not death for individuals, but the complete removal of humanity from the galactic community. Earth would be isolated. Human colonies would be disbanded. Everything his species had built among the stars would be erased. The accused may speak, Kel Voss announced. Marcus looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien faces looked back at him. Most showed contempt. Some showed curiosity. A few showed something that might have been pity. He had practiced his speech 100 times. He had memorized every legal argument, every diplomatic phrase, every carefully crafted excuse. But standing here, surrounded by civilizations that had existed before Earth's sun was born, he realized something important. They did not want excuses. They wanted to understand. High Magistrate, Marcus began, I could explain the strategic reasons for our actions. I could cite obscure clauses in the Concordat that might justify what we did. I could argue that the sanctuary zone's borders were unclear. He paused. But I will not insult this council with lies. A murmur ran through the chamber. This was not how accused species usually behaved. We built those installations because we were afraid, Marcus continued. 30 years ago, humanity made first contact with the galaxy. We discovered that we were small, weak, and technologically primitive compared to nearly every other species. We learned that empires like the Venari had conquered thousands of worlds, while we could barely reach our own moon. Throck made a sound of contempt. Fear does not excuse violation of sacred law. No, Marcus agreed. It does not. But it explains why we made a mistake. And it explains why we are willing to make things right. Kel Voss shifted through several colors. What do you propose, human? I propose that you hear our full story before passing judgment. Not just the story of what we did wrong, but the story of who we are. Marcus reached into his jacket and withdrew a small device. I have brought testimony from someone who can explain humanity better than I ever could. We do not need stories, Throck interrupted. We need justice. With respect, General, you need understanding. Marcus activated the device. Because what you think you know about humans is wrong. We are not what we appear to be. The holographic projector hummed to life. A figure appeared in the air above Marcus, and suddenly the entire chamber went quiet. The hologram showed an old woman. She sat in a simple chair in a simple room, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Her face was lined with age, her hair was gray, and her hands showed the marks of hard work. She looked like someone's grandmother, but her eyes told a different story. They were sharp, alert, and filled with something that made even General Throck shift uncomfortably. My name is Colonel Elena Vance, the woman said. Retired, Human Defense Force. I am 91 years old, and I have been asked to explain to this council why humanity deserves to exist among the stars. She smiled, and there was nothing warm about it. I should warn you first. What I am about to tell you is classified by 4 governments, 2 military branches, and 1 organization that officially does not exist. I have been given special permission to share this information because the alternative is extinction. She leaned forward. And I do not intend to let my species die because some aliens did not understand what they were dealing with. In the gallery, several representatives made sounds of shock. No one spoke to the council this way. No one. But Colonel Vance was not finished. You look at humanity and see a young species. Primitive. Weak. You think we are children playing with toys we do not understand. Her voice hardened. You are making a very dangerous mistake. General Throck stepped forward. You dare threaten this council? I am not threatening anyone, Vance replied calmly. I am educating you. Because 40 years ago, before any of you knew Earth existed, I faced something that your most powerful weapons could not stop. Something that had destroyed civilizations older than yours. She paused, letting the words sink in. And I killed it with a piece of broken equipment and pure stubbornness. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions. Military commanders demanded explanations. Kelvas had to release a pulse of energy to restore order. You will explain this claim, the High Magistrate demanded. Gladly, Vance said. But you need to understand something first. Humans are not like you. We did not evolve on a gentle world with stable climates and predictable challenges. We evolved on Earth, a planet that has tried to kill us every single day for 300,000 years. She gestured, and new images appeared around her. Images of Earth's history. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, predators, disasters that should have wiped out humanity a dozen times over. Every other species in this council evolved to fit their environment, Vance continued. You developed armor, or speed, or strength, or intelligence. You specialized. You found your place in the natural order. She stood up, and even in holographic form, her presence seemed to fill the chamber. Humans refused to do that. We refused to accept our place. When the ice came, we made fire. When predators hunted us, we hunted them back. When disease struck, we invented medicine. When our world tried to kill us, we conquered it instead. Her eyes swept across the assembled delegates. You want to know why we built weapons in your sanctuary zone? Because we looked at the galaxy and saw the same thing we have always seen. Danger, threats, challenges that other species had learned to avoid. She smiled grimly. We do not avoid challenges. We overcome them. It is what we are. It is what we have always been. General Throck had gone very still. Something in the old woman's words had touched a nerve. "This is mythology," he said finally. "Stories your species tells itself to feel important." "No," Vance replied. "It is history. And I am about to show you the difference." Marcus watched the council's reaction carefully. The contempt was fading from many faces, replaced by uncertainty. These beings ruled the galaxy. They had seen everything. They thought they understood all the patterns of evolution and civilization. They were about to learn that humans did not follow patterns. 43 years ago, Vance began, a research team discovered something buried beneath the Pacific Ocean, something that was not from Earth. The hologram shifted to show classified footage, and Marcus felt the temperature in the chamber drop. Whatever was about to be revealed would change everything. The holographic display filled the council chamber with images that made several alien delegates rise from their seats in alarm. Deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, buried under kilometers of water and rock, something waited. Something ancient. Something that did not belong. Colonel Vance's recorded voice narrated the footage with cold precision. In the year 2139, a deep-sea mining operation in the Mariana Trench encountered an anomaly. Their drilling equipment broke through into a chamber that should not have existed. Inside that chamber, they found a vessel. The image showed a ship unlike anything human engineers had ever designed. Its hull curved in ways that seemed to ignore geometry. Its surface shifted and changed like a living thing. Even in the recording, even across decades and light years, the council members could feel the wrongness of it. High Magistrate Kelvos shifted through colors that had no names in any human language. "That is a Drelkith tomb ship." A wave of shock passed through the chamber. Marcus watched alien faces transform with recognition and fear. Whatever the Drelkith were, they clearly terrified beings who had ruled the stars for millions of years. For those unfamiliar with the term, Kelvos continued, her voice unusually tight, the Drelkith were a species that existed before the current galactic order, before the Council, before most of our civilizations learned to use fire. They were monsters, General Throck added, and for once there was no arrogance in his voice. Only memory. My ancestors passed down stories of them. They did not conquer worlds. They consumed them. They fed on intelligent life, the way your species feeds on lesser creatures. The Drelkith went extinct 3 million years ago, another delegate called out. "This must be a mistake." "It was not a mistake," Vance replied. "We confirmed the ship's age. It had been buried beneath the ocean floor for approximately 2.8 million years. And something inside, it was still alive." The footage changed. It showed a facility built around the alien vessel, hundreds of scientists working to understand what they had found. The recording quality was military grade, crystal clear despite the passage of time. "We should have left it alone," Vance continued. "We should have sealed the chamber and walked away. But we were humans. We were curious. And we were arrogant enough to think we could handle whatever we found." Marcus watched the council members lean forward. They were no longer looking at him with contempt. They were looking at the footage with something closer to dread. "On day 47 of the research project," Vance narrated, "a junior technician accidentally triggered the vessel's awakening sequence. What happened next nearly ended humanity before we ever reached the stars." The footage showed chaos. Alarms blaring, scientists running, and something emerging from the ancient ship, something that the cameras could barely capture because it seemed to exist only partially in normal space, that it moved through walls. It passed through security barriers, as if they were not there. And wherever it touched a living being, that being simply ceased to exist, leaving only a fading screen and empty clothes. 312 people died in the first 6 hours, Vance said. The facility was designed to contain biological threats, not something that ignored physical matter. We tried everything. Bullets passed through it. Explosives did not affect it. Energy weapons seemed to make it stronger. In the council chamber, delegates were whispering frantically. Military commanders were consulting their tactical databases. Even General Throck looked disturbed. "How did your species survive?" Kelvas demanded. "The Drelketh consumed civilizations with technology far beyond your current level. An awakened guardian should have been unstoppable." "It was unstoppable," Vance agreed. "By any rational measure, every person in that facility was already dead. The creature was moving toward the surface. If it reached the open ocean, if it found more food, it would have grown, spread, consumed everything." The footage focused on a young woman in a military uniform. She was covered in blood, half of it not her own, and she was running through flooded corridors while something nightmarish pursued her. "That is me," Vance said. I was 26 years old. I had been stationed at the facility as part of the security detail. I watched 300 people die in front of me. The young Elena Vance in the footage reached a sealed door. Behind her, the creature was closing in. She should have died there. Instead, she did something unexpected. She stopped running. "I realized something in that moment," the elder Vance narrated. Running was pointless. Fighting conventionally was pointless. The creature was beyond anything we understood. It existed outside our rules, our physics, our reality. Her voice grew harder. So I decided to stop playing by the rules. The footage showed young Vance gathering equipment from fallen colleagues. Electronics, power cells, pieces of damaged machinery, working frantically as the creature circled the sealed chamber, testing the walls, searching for a way in. "I had no training in advanced physics," Vance explained. "I barely passed my engineering courses in the academy. But I had something else. I had the absolute refusal to accept that the situation was hopeless." Marcus watched the council's reaction. They were completely silent now, every eye fixed on the footage. Young Vance assembled something from the salvaged parts. It looked like nothing recognizable, just a tangled mess of wires and power cells, held together with determination and desperation. "I worked for 19 hours straight," Vance continued. "No sleep. No food, no rest. I could hear the creature on the other side of the wall, scratching, probing, waiting. Every few minutes, I heard another scream from somewhere else in the facility as it found another survivor. And I kept working." General Throck stepped closer to the hologram. "What did you build?" "I did not know at the time," Vance admitted. "I was working on instinct, following patterns I did not consciously understand. Later, when Concordat scientists analyzed my device, they told me I had accidentally invented something they call a dimensional anchor." Kelvas made a sound that Marcus's translator rendered as extreme disbelief. "That technology requires centuries of theoretical development. It cannot be improvised." "And yet I did it," Vance replied calmly. "Because I did not know it was impossible. Because no one had told me that it could not be done. Because I was a human being facing death, and human beings do not accept death gracefully." The footage showed young Vance completing her device. Then she did something that made several council members cry out in alarm. She opened the sealed door. The creature rushed in, a nightmare of impossible geometry and ancient hunger. Young Vance stood her ground, her makeshift device crackling with unstable energy. She looked terrified. She looked determined. She looked exactly like someone who had decided that if she was going to die, she would die fighting. "The battle lasted approximately 4 minutes," Vance narrated over the chaotic footage. "My device worked, but only partially. It forced the creature into normal space, made it solid enough to hurt. But it also nearly killed me 3 times. I took injuries that the medical team later said should have been instantly fatal. The footage showed the fight in brutal detail. Young Vance was thrown against walls. Her device failed repeatedly. She restarted it each time through some combination of violence and luck. The creature screamed in frequencies that the recording could barely capture. And then, somehow, impossibly, the creature fell. Young Vance stood over its dissolving remains, barely alive, her homemade weapons smoking in her hands. The footage showed her vital signs on a medical overlay. Her heart had stopped twice during the fight. She had lost enough blood to kill 3 normal people, but she was still standing. When the containment team finally breached the facility, Vance continued, they found me unconscious on the floor. My heart had stopped for the 3rd time approximately 15 minutes before they arrived. By every medical standard, I was dead. She smiled grimly. I came back anyway. The chamber erupted into noise. Delegates shouted questions and demands. General Throck was staring at the hologram with an expression that might have been respect or might have been fear. Kelvos restored order with another pulse of energy. Colonel Vance, are you claiming that you returned from death through sheer willpower? I am claiming that I refuse to accept death as an outcome, Vance replied. My body was destroyed. My heart had stopped. My brain was shutting down. But somewhere in whatever remains after the physical systems fail, I made a choice. I decided I was not finished yet. She leaned forward in her chair, her ancient eyes burning with intensity. And that, High Magistrate, is what you need to understand about humanity. We do not have the Venari's strength. We do not have the Kethra as intelligence. We do not have the technology, or the experience, or the power that your civilizations have accumulated over millions of years. What we have is simpler. She paused, letting the silence build. We have the absolute refusal to accept that anything is impossible. You tell us we cannot survive? We survive anyway. You tell us we cannot win? We find a way to win. You tell us we are dead? Her smile was cold. We disagree. Ambassador Marcus watched the council members process this information. The contempt was completely gone now. In its place was something more complex. Confusion, concern, and underneath it all, tea. He first stirrings of genuine fear, because they were finally beginning to understand what they were dealing with. The creature I killed was a Drulkith Guardian, Vance continued. A being that had destroyed civilizations more advanced than anything in this council. And a 26-year-old human woman killed it with broken equipment and the refusal to give up. She stood up in the hologram. And even as a recording, even across decades, her presence seemed to fill the chamber. You want to know why we built weapons in your sanctuary zone? Because we looked at the galaxy and saw the same thing I saw in that facility. Threats that seemed impossible to defeat. Challenges that should have been beyond us. And we reacted the same way humans have always reacted. Her voice rang through the hall of 10,000. Voices. We started preparing to win. The silence in the council chamber lasted for nearly a full minute. Ambassador Marcus stood in the accused circle, watching thousands of alien faces struggle to process what they had just witnessed. The hologram of Colonel Elena Vance remained frozen above him, her ancient eyes still carrying that impossible fire. High Magistrate Kelvos finally spoke. Her form had shifted to colors that Marcus's translator simply labeled as deep contemplation. This testimony is remarkable, she said carefully. But Colonel Vance, while your survival was impressive, it does not change the fundamental issue. Your species violated sacred law. One soldier's bravery does not excuse an entire civilization's actions. General Throck stepped forward, his massive form blocking part of the gallery view. I agree with the High Magistrate. The human story is interesting, but it proves nothing. Any species can produce exceptional individuals. The Venari have warriors who have survived battles that should have killed them. This does not grant special privileges. Marcus felt his heart sink. They had shown the Council something extraordinary. And it was not enough. But Vance was not finished. "You misunderstand me," she said, her holographic image shifting to show her standing rather than sitting. "I did not share my story to claim that I was special. I shared it to show you what an ordinary human can do when pushed to the limit." She gestured, and new images appeared around her. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Faces of men and women from across human history, each one accompanied by data files and recordings. "Admiral Thomas Blake," Vance said, highlighting one image. During the orbital defense crisis of 2157, his ship was crippled by a reactor breach. Standard protocol required immediate evacuation. Instead, he sealed himself in the engineering section and manually contained the breach for 6 hours while his crew escaped. The radiation exposure should have killed him in minutes. He survived for 3 days, long enough to see his people reach safety. Another image came forward. Dr. Priya Sharma. When a plague struck the Luna colony in 2163, she deliberately infected herself with the virus to test an experimental treatment in real time. She documented her own symptoms as they destroyed her body, transmitting data to her research team until the moment her heart stopped. Her sacrifice led to a cure that saved 40,000 lives. More images. More stories. Each one showing a human being facing impossible odds and refusing to surrender. Private Michael Torres held a collapsing tunnel ceiling for 11 hours while trapped miners escaped beneath him. His spine was shattered in 4 places. He did not let go. Vance's voice carried an edge of fierce pride. Captain Sarah Okonkwo flew a damaged transport through a solar flare to rescue stranded colonists. Her skin was burned off her body. She completed the mission before dying. General Throke's expression had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like recognition. Lieutenant James Park faced a Drell-Kith artifact outbreak on Station 7, Vance continued. He had no weapons, no training, no hope of survival. He fought for 47 hours with nothing but engineering tools and pure stubbornness. When rescue teams arrived, they found him standing over the destroyed artifact, alive against every calculation. The images multiplied until the chamber was filled with human faces. Ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. "You ask why we violated your sacred law," Vance said. "Here is your answer. We built those installations because we cannot accept that survival is impossible. We cannot accept that some threats are beyond fighting. We cannot accept limits the way your species have. Learned to accept them." She turned her attention directly to General. "Throck, you called us a young species, primitive, weak. You are correct that we have less technology than you. Less experience. Less power." Her eyes hardened. "But you are wrong about weakness." "Then explain yourself," Throck demanded. "Explain what makes humans different from every other young species we have encountered." "We evolved on Earth," Vance replied simply. "A world that has tried to kill us every single day for 300,000 years. Ice ages that should have frozen us. Predators that should have eaten us. Diseases that should have wiped us out. Natural disasters that should have ended our species a dozen times." She spread her hands to encompass all the faces floating in the air around her. "We survived all of it. Not by being stronger or faster or smarter, but by being more stubborn than anything the universe threw at us. We looked at extinction and said no. We looked at impossible odds and called them a challenge. We looked at death and refused to acknowledge its authority." Kelvas interrupted. "Other species have survival instincts, Colonel. This is not unique to humans." "Survival instinct is passive," Vance countered. It tells you to run from danger, to avoid threats, to accept the boundaries that nature sets for you. What humans have is different. We do not run from danger. We study it, understand it, and find ways to defeat it. She pulled up another image, this one showing the research facility where she had fought the Drell-Kith Guardian. When we discovered that alien vessel, any rational species would have sealed the chamber and walked away. The danger was obvious. The threat was clear. A sensible civilization would have accepted that some things are too dangerous to investigate. Her smile was grim. We investigated anyway, not because we were foolish, but because we could not accept leaving a mystery unsolved. We could not accept that anything was beyond our understanding. And when the creature awakened and started killing us, we did not surrender. We fought back. You nearly went extinct, Throck pointed out. We nearly went extinct 100 times, Vance agreed. During the Ice Ages? During the plagues. During the wars, we fought against each other. Each time, we came back stronger. Each time, we learned. Each time, we adapted and overcame. She stepped closer to the edge of her holographic projection, as if trying to reach across the light years to the council chamber itself. That is what we did with the sanctuary zone. We saw a region that had been declared untouchable, a place where weapons were forbidden and military forces could not go. And we asked ourselves a question that your species stopped asking long ago. She paused for emphasis. What happens when something comes out of that zone that does not respect your laws? The chamber went silent. Marcus could see the question hitting home for delegates who had spent their entire lives trusting in the Council's rules. The sanctuary zone has been peaceful for 400,000 years. Vance continued. But the galaxy is not safe. You know this. Deep in your archives, you have records of threats that make the Drell-Kith look gentle. The Void Walkers, the Entropy Singers, the things that live in the spaces between stars. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. These were names that civilized species did not speak aloud. We read your histories, Vance said. We saw what happened to species that trusted in peace without preparing for war. They were destroyed, absorbed, erased from existence. And we decided that humanity would not join that list. She turned to face High Magistrate Kel Voss directly. You call our actions a violation of sacred law. We call them survival preparation. We built those installations not to attack anyone, but to ensure that if something terrible emerged from the depths of space, humans would have a chance to fight back. Even if fighting was hopeless? Kel Voss asked. Especially if fighting was hopeless, Vance replied. Because humans do not believe in hopeless. We believe that every enemy can be defeated. Every threat can be overcome. Every impossible situation has a solution waiting to be found. She gestured to the thousands of faces still floating in the air. These people, these ordinary humans, they did not accept impossible. They found ways to survive, to fight, to win even when every rational analysis said they could not. That is not mythology or propaganda. That is documented history. That is who we are. General Throck stepped forward again, but this time his posture was different. Less aggressive. More thoughtful. You claim that humans can do what other species cannot, he said slowly. That you can face threats we have learned to avoid. How do we know this is not just arrogance? Vance smiled, and there was something dangerous in that expression. Because I am standing here, General. Because I killed a Drell-Kith Guardian with broken equipment and stubbornness. Because Admiral Blake survived radiation that should have killed him. Because Dr. Sharma turned her own death into a weapon against disease. Because Private Torres held up a ceiling until his spine shattered rather than let people die. She straightened to her full height, even in holographic form, projecting absolute certainty. You want proof that humans are different? Look at our history. Look at what we have survived. Look at what we have overcome. And then ask yourself this question. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. If we can do all that while fighting against our own planet, what do you think we can do when we have a real enemy to focus on? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus watched the council members exchanging glances. The mood in the chamber had shifted dramatically. What had begun as a trial for humanity's violations was becoming something else. Entirely, it was becoming a revelation. And Colonel Elena Vance was not finished yet. Council chamber had fallen into a state of uncertain silence. Ambassador Marcus could feel the tension building as thousands of alien delegates processed everything they had witnessed. The hologram of Colonel Vance still floated above him, her aged face carrying that impossible combination of wisdom and ferocity. Then something unexpected happened. High, Magistrate Kelvos descended from her elevated position. In 6 million years of council history, this had happened exactly 17 times. Each instance marked a moment of profound importance. The assembled delegates fell completely silent as their silver form drifted down to hover directly before the human ambassador. "Ambassador Kane," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested deep emotion. "Colonel Vance, your testimony has raised questions that this council has not considered for a very long time." She turned to face the gallery, addressing the gathered representatives of 1,000 civilizations. "What the humans do not know, what we have kept from all younger species, is that Colonel Vance's survival was not an accident. It was not unique. It was, in fact, exactly what certain ancient prophecies predicted would happen." A wave of confused murmuring swept through the chamber. Even General Throck looked uncertain. From the highest tier of the gallery, a figure that had remained silent throughout the proceedings finally moved. Arbiter Netheran descended slowly, her form ancient beyond measurement. Her species had been old when the council was founded. They remembered things that other civilizations had forgotten millions of years ago. "I will speak now," Netheran announced. Her voice was like wind through ancient stones, carrying the weight of epics. "What I say next is known only to the founding species of this council. It has been kept secret because we feared what would happen if it became widely known." She turned her attention to the hologram of Colonel Vance, studying the human woman with eyes that had witnessed the birth and death of stars. 3 million years ago, before the Drelkith fell, before the current galactic order emerged, there was a species that watched over everything. The first observers, we called them. They existed beyond physical form, beyond time itself in some ways. They saw patterns that we could not see. Netheran gestured, and the chamber's holographic systems activated without anyone touching them. Ancient images appeared, corrupted with age, but still recognizable. A species that looked almost human, but with something more in their eyes. Something vast. The first observers left our galaxy before recorded history began. They said they had learned everything they needed to learn, that they were moving on to explore existence at a level we could not follow. Netheran paused. But before they left, they made a prophecy. The chamber was absolutely silent now. Even breathing seemed too loud. They told us that the galaxy would face a cycle of challenges. Threats that emerged from the darkness between stars. Entities that fed on intelligent life. Crises that tested the strength of civilization itself. Netheran's form shifted through ancient colors. They said that established species would grow comfortable, would learn to avoid danger rather than confront it, would eventually become too cautious to survive. She turned to look directly at Marcus. And they said that when the darkness came again, salvation would not come from the powerful or the wise. It would come from a species that had not yet learned to accept limits. A species that had evolved on a world designed to kill them, that had learned to treat the impossible as merely difficult. That would face extinction with anger rather than acceptance. Colonel Vance's hologram flickered. The old woman's expression was unreadable. The first observers called this species the inheritors, Netheran continued. They said these beings would be young, stubborn, and dangerous. They would violate laws that had stood for ages. They would question traditions that older species had accepted. They would infuriate the council with their refusal to stay in their place. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried something that might have been wonder. But they also said that when the true darkness came, when the things that lived between stars finally awakened, the inheritors would be the only ones who could stop them, because they would be the only ones who did not know that they were supposed to lose. The chamber erupted into noise. Delegates were shouting, demanding explanations, questioning whether this was true. General Throck was staring at Netheron with an expression of pure shock. Kelvos restored order with a pulse of energy. Arbiter Netheron, are you saying that humans are the inheritors described in the ancient prophecy? I am saying that the evidence is compelling, Netheron replied. A species evolved on one of the harshest worlds we have ever catalogued. A species that has survived disasters that should have destroyed them dozens of times. A species that produces individuals capable of killing Drelkith Guardians with improvised weapons and pure will. She turned to face Colonel Vance's hologram. Colonel, when you fought that creature in the research facility, did you believe you could win? Vance considered the question. No, I believed I was going to die. I accepted that. But I also decided that if I was going to die, I would make sure the creature died with me. And when your heart stopped? When by every medical standard you were dead. Vance's smile was thin. I decided that death was not going to have the last word. Netheran nodded slowly. That is the quality the first observers described. Not strength or intelligence or power, but refusal. The absolute rejection of any outcome that others have accepted as inevitable. General Throck stepped forward, his earlier hostility replaced by something more complex. If this prophecy is true, if humans are truly these inheritors, then why have we never been told? Why keep this secret for millions of years? Because we feared it, Kelvos admitted. The prophecy did not only promise salvation, it warned that the inheritors would reshape the galaxy, that nothing would be the same after they rose, that the comfortable order we had built would be challenged in ways we could not predict. She turned to face Marcus and then the hologram of Colonel Vance. We have been watching your species since you developed radio technology. We observed your wars, your disasters, your relentless expansion. We saw how quickly you adapted to challenges that would have paralyzed other civilizations for generations. And we were afraid. Her form shifted through troubled colors. When you reached the stars, we tried to control your growth. We gave you territory that seemed marginal, hoping to limit your expansion. We denied you access to advanced technology, hoping to slow your development. We kept you away from the sanctuary zone because we knew that if you found the threats hidden there, you would not run away. You would try to fight. Colonel Vance's expression hardened. And now you are judging us for doing exactly what you feared we would do. Yes, Kelvos admitted. Because even knowing the prophecy, even understanding what you might be, we were not ready to accept what your presence means. She turned to address the entire chamber. The comfortable age is ending. The first observers warned us this would happen. They told us that the darkness between stars was not dead, only sleeping. They said that when it awakened, we would need warriors who did not believe in surrender. She gestured to the hologram of Colonel Vance and to Ambassador Marcus standing below it. Humanity may be those warriors. Their actions in the sanctuary zone, their refusal to accept limits, their production of individuals like Colonel Vance, it all matches what the ancient texts predicted. General Throck rumbled deep in his chest. And what does this prophecy say, Hap? Ends next? It says, Netheran answered slowly, that the inheritors will be tested, that they will face something that challenges their refusal to surrender, that they will either prove themselves worthy of the galaxy's trust or reveal themselves as just another young species with more courage than wisdom. She looked at Colonel Vance with ancient, measuring eyes. The prophecy says that the first true test has already begun. It started 43 years ago, when a young human soldier killed a Drelkith guardian with nothing but broken equipment and stubbornness. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Colonel Vance spoke carefully. You are saying that my survival was part of some ancient plan? I am saying that the first observers saw patterns we cannot see, Netheran replied. They knew that somewhere, someday, a species would evolve that matched their description. They left warnings and guidance for that species, hidden in places that only the inheritors would find. She paused. Colonel, the device you built to kill the Guardian. You said you did not understand how you knew to create it. You worked on instinct, following patterns you did not consciously recognize. Vance nodded slowly. That is correct. The first observers left instructions in the genetic code of potential inheritor species. Knowledge buried so deep that it cannot be accessed consciously. Only in moments of extreme stress, when the conscious mind stops interfering. Netheran's form flickered. You did not invent that device, Colonel. You remembered it from patterns your ancestors did not know they were passing down. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical force. Marcus felt his understanding of humanity's place in the universe shifting, expanding, becoming something both terrifying and wonderful. Humans were not an accident. They were not just another young species stumbling toward the stars. They were the answer to a question that had been asked 3 million years ago. What happens when the darkness comes back? Colonel Vance's hologram flickered as she processed this information. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, but her eyes showed something new. Purpose. Then what are we supposed to do now? If this prophecy is real, if we are really these inheritors, what comes next? Netheran's ancient form shifted through colors that had no names. Now, she said, you prepare. Because the first observers did not only leave a prophecy, they left a warning. They said that the darkness would test the inheritors within 3 generations of their awakening. Colonel Vance, you awakened 43 years ago. The math was simple. 3 generations. About 90 years. Less than 50 years remained, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, something was waiting to see if humans really were everything the prophecy claimed they would be. The final session of the trial began 3 days later. Ambassador Marcus stood in the same accused circle where he had faced judgment before, but everything had changed. The contempt that had filled the chamber was gone. In its place was something far more complex. Fear, hope, uncertainty, and above all, attention. Every species in the Galactic Council was watching. High Magistrate Kelvos called the session to order. Her silver form had taken on deeper colors, reflecting the gravity of what was about to happen. The Council has deliberated for 72 hours, she announced. We have reviewed Colonel Vance's testimony, Arbiter Netheran's revelation of the ancient prophecy, and all available evidence regarding humanity's nature and actions. We are prepared to render judgment. General Throck stepped forward. His manner had changed dramatically since the trial began. The mockery was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Before the verdict is announced, he said, I wish to make a statement on behalf of the Venari Empire. Kelvos nodded permission. Throck turned to face the gallery, his massive form commanding attention from every delegate. My species has conquered 2,000 worlds. We have fought in more wars than most civilizations have existed. We believed we understood warriors better than any other species in the galaxy. He paused, his scales rippling through colors that suggested deep emotion. We were wrong. He looked at the hologram of Colonel Vance, which had been reactivated for the final session. Colonel, when you killed that Drolkith Guardian, you did something that the greatest Venari warriors have never accomplished. Not because you were stronger or faster or better equipped, but because you possessed something we have forgotten how to have. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. You had absolute certainty that you could win, even when every fact said you would lose. You had the pure refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat was the only logical outcome. You had what my ancestors called the fire of creation, the force that makes the universe itself bend to will. He turned back to the Council. The Venari Empire withdraws all accusations against humanity. We do not believe they violated the sanctuary zone out of malice or aggression. We believe they did exactly what warriors should do. They prepared for threats that others had learned to ignore. A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber. For the Venari to withdraw accusations was almost unheard of. For them to acknowledge another species as worthy warriors was unprecedented. Other delegates began standing. One by one, species that had supported the charges against humanity changed their positions. The accumulated pressure of thousands of years of cautious diplomacy crumbled as civilization after civilization recognized what they were witnessing. Humanity was not being judged anymore. Humanity was being acknowledged. Kel single quotes Voss waited until the chamber quieted before speaking. In light of the evidence presented, the Council has reached the following conclusions. She turned to face Marcus directly. First, regarding the charge of violating the sanctuary zone, the Council finds that while human actions did technically breach established law, those actions were motivated by legitimate survival concerns. The charge is reduced to a minor protocol violation, with no significant penalties. Marcus felt relief flood through him, but he knew that was only the beginning. Second, Voss continued, regarding humanity's status in the Galactic Council. The Council has voted to upgrade human membership from provisional to full standing. All restrictions on human expansion, technology access, and military development are hereby removed. The chamber erupted into noise. Full Council membership typically required millennia of proven stability. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for barely 30 years. Voss raised her hand for silence. Third, and most importantly, the Council has voted to share the full contents of the First Observer's prophecy with humanity. This includes not only the warnings about the coming darkness, but also the guidance and hidden knowledge that the First Observers left for the inheritors. She paused, her form shifting through solemn colors. We do this because we believe the prophecy is real. We believe that humanity may be the species described in those ancient texts. And we believe that if the darkness truly is awakening, the galaxy will need warriors who do not believe in surrender. Colonel Vance's hologram flickered. The old woman's expression was difficult to read. High Magistrate, she said, I appreciate the Council's change in position. But I need to understand something. You have been watching humanity for decades. You have tried to limit our growth, control our development, keep us contained. Now you're suddenly giving us full access to everything? Voss nodded slowly. Yes, because we realize now that our caution was misguided. The First Observers did not simply leave a prophecy about the inheritors. They left instructions for how other species should respond when the inheritors appeared. Arbiter Netheran moved forward, her ancient form seeming to carry the weight of millions of years. The First Observers knew that the inheritors would frighten older civilizations, she explained. They knew that our first instinct would be to contain them, limit them, try to make them safe. They warned against this very specifically. She pulled up an ancient text, projected in languages that even the Council's translators struggled to interpret. They said that the inheritors could not be contained without destroying the very quality that made them valuable. They said that trying to make them safe would make them useless. They said that the only way to benefit from the inheritors was to trust them, support them, and step aside when necessary. Colonel Vance absorbed this information. So you are not just acknowledging us. You are stepping aside. We are recognizing that the galaxy needs what humanity offers, Calvas confirmed. Not our guidance or our control, but our support. The Council will continue to govern, but we will no longer try to limit human development. We will not interfere with your expansion. We will not try to make you more like us. She paused. Because being like us is not what the galaxy needs. Being like us means accepting limits. Being like us means learning to avoid danger instead of confronting it. Being like us means eventually becoming so cautious that we cannot respond when the true threats emerge. Ambassador Marcus finally spoke. And what do you expect from us in return? We expect you to be human, Etharan answered. We expect you to question rules that have stood for ages. We expect you to challenge traditions we have accepted. We expect you to face threats that double you. Ye have learned to run from. Her ancient eyes met his. We expect you to do what Colonel Vance did 43 years ago. When you face something that should kill you, we expect you to kill it instead. When you encounter problems we have labeled impossible, we expect you to solve them anyway. When the darkness finally comes, we expect you to stand between it and the rest of the galaxy. Marcus felt the weight of that expectation settling onto his shoulders. It was not a comfortable feeling. That is a great deal to ask of one species, he said carefully. It is, Calvas agreed. But we are not asking you to carry this burden alone. We are asking you to lead the response, to show the rest of us how to remember what we have forgotten, to teach us how to be stubborn again. She turned to address the entire chamber. The Council hereby invites humanity to join the inner circle of strategic planning. For the first time in 400,000 years, a species that has existed for less than 1,000,000 years will have a voice in galactic defense coordination. The announcement sent shockwaves through the gathered delegates. The inner circle had always been reserved for the oldest, most powerful civilizations. Humanity was neither, but humanity was something else. Something that the galaxy had been waiting for, whether it knew it or not. Colonel Vance's hologram flickered one last time before stabilizing. The old woman stood straight, her eyes bright with something that Marcus recognized. It was the same fire she had shown when describing her battle with the Drelkith Guardian. The same absolute refusal to accept limits. High Magistrate, Vance said, I have one more thing to say before this session ends. Calvas nodded. Speak, Colonel. Vance looked out at the gathered representatives of 1,000 civilizations. Beings that had ruled the stars before Earth existed. Powers that could destroy humanity with barely a thought. You call us the inheritors, she said. You say we were designed to face the darkness, to fight the things you have learned to avoid. Maybe that is true. Maybe the first observers really did see something in our future that we cannot see ourselves. She paused. But I want you to understand something. We do not fight because we were designed to. We do not refuse to surrender because some ancient prophecy says we should. We do these things because they are who we are. They are who we have always been, long before anyone knew about prophecies or first observers or cosmic patterns. Her voice hardened with conviction. We fought our own planet for 300,000 years. We fought ice ages and predators and diseases that should have killed us. We fought each other in terrible wars that nearly destroyed everything we built. And through all of it, through every disaster and every setback and every moment when giving up would have been easier, we kept going. She spread her hands, encompassing the entire chamber. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It is not our weapons or our technology or our numbers. It is the simple fact that we do not know how to stop. We do not understand surrender. We cannot accept that any problem is truly unsolvable. Her eyes burned with that impossible fire. So yes, we will face your darkness. We will fight whatever comes out of the spaces between stars. We will stand between the galaxy and whatever horrors are waiting to destroy it. Not because a prophecy says we should, but because that is what humans do. She smiled. And it was the same smile she had shown when describing how she killed a monster with broken equipment and pure will. We see something that needs to be fought, and we fight it. We see something that needs to be survived, and we survive it. We see something that says we cannot win, and we prove it wrong. Her voice rang through the hall of 10,000 voices. That is the inheritance we bring to this council. Not power, not wisdom, not technology. Just the absolute, unshakable certainty that no matter what happens, no matter what threatens us, no matter how impossible the odds might seem, we will find a way to win. She straightened to her full height, ancient but unbroken. We are humanity. We are the species that refused to die when dying was easier. We are the species that conquered our own planet by being too stubborn to stop trying. We are the species that makes the impossible possible through pure, bloody-minded determination. Her final words echoed through the chamber, through the hearts of 1,000 civilizations, through the fabric of galactic history itself. And we are just getting started. The trial ended not with a verdict, but with a promise. Humanity had come to the council expecting judgment. They left as something no one had expected. They left as the galaxy's last hope dot, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, something ancient stirred in its sleep, sensing that its time was coming. It had consumed civilizations for millions of years. It had fed on intelligent life across 100 galaxies. It had faced every weapon, every strategy, every power that the universe had thrown against it. But it had never faced humanity. It had never faced a species that refused to accept defeat. And when it finally awakened, when it came to claim the galaxy as it had claimed so many others, it would learn the same lesson that the Drell Kith Guardian had learned 43 years ago. Some species do not know how to surrender. Some species fight even when fighting is impossible. Some species look at death and say no. Humanity was that species dot, and they were ready.